get ready. I'll be explaining why it's time to stop fooling around and finally play the Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater right now. And it's not because you can feed on a tree frog. A decent part of this video was written as a praise and an extolment for the game, but then I realized that making a review of a 20 years old game doesn't make any sense. Almost everything that can be said about the game has already been said. So I decided to take it from a different direction. I would not retell the story, I will not try to analyze it and go into the gameplay details. I would rather focus on speaking why it's worth playing for a person who has never tried it. And in fact, there are only two reasons for that, three. With the first one is the fact that the 20 years old game, is available on the modern consoles. Alright, so what do you know about the Metal Gear series, if you know something? Convoluted story, too many characters, naked women, locked camera, unintuitive gameplay. You can take all of that and throw in a trash bin. Well, almost. It doesn't mean that the game lacks on depth and the complexity of the story. On the contrary, this is a very deep and well-written story with profound characters with deep philosophy behind them. It's just the game will not blow your mind of the abundance of characters and prerequisites to know what connections tie them. Like in Metal Gear Solid 2, you basically needed to draw schemas and lines to understand who the characters are and how they relate to each other. At the same time, for the Metal Gear Solid 5, you need to play 2 games on god-forgotten artifacts of ancient civilizations, just to understand who the characters are and why they are in this state of their life. And one more thing, chronologically, this is the very first game of the series, so you will not have these problems of understanding what's going on. Of course, if you played other games of the series, I have a question why you haven't played this game yet, but you will not have these questions. Am I not understanding something because I haven't played the previous games, or do I need to watch some video to understand the characters? No, absolutely not. This is the very start of the series, and actually this is a great entrance to the series. Alright, so I won't lie that the main story is the main driver for me to make this video. I played the game a few months ago for the first time, and it made such a huge emotional impression on me, so I immediately knew I'd like to make a video about it. However, I didn't know how to do that, because, as I said, I didn't want to make another review that would repeat what everybody has already said. That's why I decided to approach it from a different side. I will not speak what's going on in the story, and I will not analyze the events. I will rather speak about the story in the conceptual way. So you will not face any spoilers, no worries. Besides, spoiling this game would be just a major crime, and I believe the most sincere emotions that you can get, well, especially from such a story, is the ones that you will get on your personal walkthrough. I will focus on the themes and the topics that are being brought up in the game, and why it's so strong emotion-wise. You can treat this video basically as a preface that is written on the 0th page of a book or on its cover. So, getting to the plot. This is a military story of a deep sorrow and a feeling of disenchantment in everything a person may believe or consider important, brought by realization how politicians use those who trust them in their political games, and then just basically spit them away. It's about how friends become enemies at a snap of a finger, because the high-level generals tell so. It's about how emotions and personal feelings are used as a method of manipulation and achieving personal goals. It's about loyalty, patriotism, and duty, and how these words are twisted up for manipulating and used as a weapon. Have you ever thought what these words actually mean and what price needs to be paid if one commits to them? This can be applied to different things in our life. Our loved ones, friends, family, craftsmanship, you name it. Basically everything that we consider important. But what happens if committing and fulfilling some duty heavily contradicts with some other rules? What should we do in this case? I guess everyone's been in a situation when doing some right thing, according to some standards and rule, will break some other rules that we also consider important. What should we do in this case? Should we look for a compromise then? And what is the compromise? Is it something that hurts less in general, or something that hurts less to the most important rule? And how do we define the most important rule? Is there some hierarchy at all? Or looking from a different angle, if we have a contradictory situation, shouldn't we question the rules themselves then? People are often driven by dogmas like patriotism, customs, traditions, many things. And it's obvious why people don't question that, because it's not just about leaving your comfort zone. It's about challenging the very roots of a person's existence, basically challenging the way of living. And believe me, this can be a very painful process, as it requires not just asking questions, why am I doing that? This is basically about breaking piece to piece the very existence and the meaning of a person's life. And I'm not speaking about that in a bad way. This is some level of escapism that everybody has, and live with it. And it's fine, because otherwise that would be just an insanity. That's how we cope with our everyday life, essentially. Yeah, right now I'm speaking about all of that in very high level in general terms, but in fact we make compromises every day. It's just their level of importance is not that high, so we don't even think about that. However, sometimes life exposes people to a situation when making certain decisions in life can be a turning point, dividing the life into before and after. In these cases, the price of a compromise is immensely high, and it can have a tremendous impact on a person, because you will probably not know the outcome beforehand, and it's barely possible to predict. As many say, the time will show, and eventually it will. However, this can be such a strong emotional impact on a person that sometimes people are not ready to bear, and tiny problems result into serious mental traumas that people carry throughout entire life without understanding what's going on with them, because they basically cannot accept what they've done. Compromise is not a bad thing, however, it has its price. Right, I seem to be too off the track even on my standards, so let's get back to the story. Actually, the reason why I went so off the track is because this is essentially the main theme of the game, the decisions and their consequences. Should a soldier follow orders or follow the right? And what is essentially the right for a soldier? What about situations when the orders internally contradict with soldiers' understanding of good and reasonable? And what about situations when orders are directed against those who a soldier may respect or even love? No spoilers are going to be given here, but you should know that these hard questions are permitting through the entire story, with the main character being torn by his duty and his emotions. At some point of the walkthrough, you start understanding the emotional weight of the path he goes and the choices and sacrifices he makes. The main character, Snake, is a good soldier, somebody would say the best. He follows orders, he does everything his country demands, he tries not to mix feelings with his job. But he fails. He fails everywhere and faces a complete desolation caused by his task, as it requires him to do something he wouldn't dream of in his most horrible nightmares and basically betray himself. He's essentially posed against the choice, loyalty and duty, and both being sacred to him. And the most horrible thing, he knows that right from the start, right from the beginning of the mission, and he realizes who has given him this mission, the country that he respects and considers himself a patriot of. He bears that through the entire mission. He knows what he is doing is wrong, and this is a devastating feeling that is burning him inside out, and he barely manages to cope with it. He is a hero, a true hero. His country appreciates him and extols. However, he knows what price he needed to pay to be the hero. He was tricked, used, and manipulated as a little kid just to achieve certain goals, because it was just convenient at some point. Even his intimate feelings that he rarely shares with anyone were used against him, just to achieve some goals. He faces the consequences of what he has done, and he needs to live on with it. However, this internal emotional wound that is burning inside of him causes tremendous emotional pain. The phantom pain, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I'm intentionally not saying what the guy needs to do, but I guess you are probably guessing from the entire narrative and the context. And actually, this would be revealed to you in the first part of the game. However, I will leave that to you. Okay, enough, stop. I have already said even more than I expected. But it's just a bit hard for me to stop speaking about the game that had such a tremendous emotional impact on me. This game is directed in such a way that it makes you to experience the entire emotional spectrum, leaving at the end of the day a lump in a throat. This is one of the stories that come up to your mind even after a few days of completing the game. And you walk around and it just stumbles in your mind and you start thinking about it all over again, about everything that happened to the guy and what it all led to. A huge shout out to this guy who wrote and directed the story. This was just an unbelievable emotional experience for me and perhaps one of the best gaming stories I've ever worked through. That's it. Nothing else to say.
The game that comes to mind when I think of an emotional experience is the...
Are you fucking